ObiaNaturals.
What's going on, guys? We have Legendary Conversations. I'm your host, Omini Ewah, and I have the incomparable, innumerable, dual PhD holding Doctorate of Education, Mr. Zachary and Gregory Shirley, the Shirley twins, my peoples. Good afternoon, guys. How are y'all doing?
We're doing well.
We're doing well, brother.
So, just a quick little backstory. I'm more familiar with Zach, who is on the right of your screen, right? And his brother Greg is on the left. Me and Zach are members of the same fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma. And Greg is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. They are identical twins, both have doctorates, both in education, both black excellence that are out here killing the game. And I had to interview them because there's so much that these two men offer to society, so much that they offer in my life, and I wanted to open up my platform and share with you guys and just put a spotlight on how amazing they both are. And one of the main things that we're going to focus on today is their sexuality, because they are open with it. And with this whole men's campaign that we're talking about with I'm Natural Too, with Legendary, I wanted to feature men that were comfortable being who they are. That's what this is all about. So everyone that I'm featuring, regardless of what their lifestyle choices are, regardless of what they do personally and professionally, it's all about being comfortable in this beautiful black skin, right? So, who was born first?
I was born first. Our parents actually did not know that they were having twins.
Surprise.
So
Up until birth.
up until birth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So my name was either going to be Zachary or Gregory because my mother really liked the name Zachary, and I'm named after our father.
Okay.
And so when I was born, they decided on Gregory, and then the nurse said within 12 minutes after me being born, well, we hear another heartbeat. And so
Wow.
out came Zach.
That was me. 12 minutes later.
Wow. Okay. And clearly, as you guys can see, they are identical. Tell me a little bit about what the upbringing was like. What was that like being two identical twins in Dallas, Texas?
So we never, I don't think, knew that we were different. We never knew that we were like twins. This was day one for us. So we never knew what it was like for people who are, say, single birth to not have someone immediately to their right or to their left who looks like them, built-in best friend, built-in playmate, built-in everything. So it was normal to us. People typically treated us like, I won't say an anomaly, but it was always the twins. So
The boys.
Yeah, so that morphed into our identity. And so for me, I would say the differences didn't really, or the noticeable differences didn't come until we got older. When we were growing up, it was just, I wake up every day, I go to sleep every day, I'm eating every day. It's him. I think that when we started going to school, though, and we were put purposefully in separate classes, that things felt, at least for me, differently, because I would look to my left and to my right, and he wouldn't be there. And so it was different. But then in the fourth grade, we were put in the same class. And we were never put in the same class, I think, ever again.
Yeah.
That 1 year was...
And they put us on opposite sides of the class.
Wow.
Yeah. So, for us, though, it was, or I'll speak for me, it was just everyday life. I would question, what do you mean you weren't born with someone who looks like you or acts like you or is like your best friend like that? So
Now, as children, did you guys fight a lot, or was it more harmonious between the two of you?
It was harmonious until we got to be teenagers. Then we fought.
Okay.
Yeah, like cats and dogs.
Fought over what? Everything, any and everything, or was it like
I would
specific?
want to watch the History Channel. He would want to play video games. We
Okay.
had to share a car, so he would always get the car because he had more places to go than I did in high school. But when I wanted to go somewhere, Zach felt like, oh, well, since I go the majority of places, I should have priority, or at least that's how I felt. And it got to the point where we actually moved into separate bedrooms in the house because that's when our personalities started to really differentiate from each other. That puberty hit, and there were things that Zach was doing that I was not into, and vice versa, of course. So, but it wasn't always something that was violent. There were a couple of times.
Yeah.
But
I think that I think interesting to that is that we would be dressed alike, we would be put in the same spaces, and I think kind of like how a mutant discovers their mutant powers in X-Men, we discovered our personalities. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a struggle almost that we weren't as similar in a lot of ways all of a sudden.
Why? Is that because that was your comfort zone?
That was my comfort zone. And I used to think that, okay, well, does this mean we're growing apart? Does this mean we're not as close as we were? But I think that's a part of growing up, period. In that you start to learn that, okay, this is my best friend, this is my brother, but we're not always going to be the same. And now that we've gotten older, in 38 years of life, we appreciate and embrace that. Because he needs his space from me, I need my space from him. But during that point in time, it was like, what do you mean we have different interests? What do you mean you have this set of friends and I have that? Because we always had the same set of friends. So we were becoming our own people.
Yeah. Now, granted, once we found out we both were same gender-loving homosexual black men, that brought us back together.
Very quickly. Very quickly.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Okay. So, when did that occur? Did it occur separately that you both found out that you had feelings for same sex? Did you guys confide into each other? When did that happen? Like, I want to fully unpack that because I think it's really...
I mean, we never had the coming out conversation with each other. Like, we never had the, let's sit down, Zach, I got to tell you something. Greg, I got to tell you something. It was, for me, I just automatically thought, well, since I'm gay, my twin must be gay because that's my twin.
Did you feel the same way, Zach?
So two things. One, looking back, I knew that I was gay in the 3rd grade. I didn't know what it was at the time, though. But in looking back in my adult mind, I'm able to say that. Two, so Greggy told me first. We were this was back when we shared rooms, and we were going to sleep one night, and he said, I have something to tell you. I think I like boys. And that, for me, was like an immediate shock. And I don't think, looking back again, I don't know if I necessarily handled it well. So...
Only you can prevent forest fires. You've already done it. You've already done it. This is my mother. Yes.
Hello. I'm Zach.
How are you, sir?
I'm Greg. Nice to meet you.
Are you guys twins?
Yes.
Okay, I see that. Because, okay.
Hey, Mama.
Amazing.
Good.
Are you keeping the beer or taking it off after?
No, we're keeping it.
Oh, you keeping it?
Yeah, we're keeping
You loved it that way?
Oh, yeah.
It's too cold to be walking around without a beard.
Oh, my goodness. You guys look wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, you look nice. Sorry. I'm sorry.
No problem. You good?
The blooper reel.
I'm good.
Yeah, the blooper reel.
It is. Are you okay?
Yeah. Okay,
All right.
continue.
Thank you. My apologies.
Oh, you cherish it while you got it. Yeah, right.
You know what? I will.
Yes.
I will.
You will look back on this and be like, look.
Remember that time my mama came in and disrupted that evening?
And how old were you, Greg, when you had that discussion with Zach about I think I like boys?
Man, honestly, I don't remember it. Like,
I feel like we were in high school.
Okay.
It had to be either sophomore or junior year of high school.
When he said that, as you're laying in the bed, it's nighttime. I don't know if the lights were on or off.
They were off.
Okay, so the lights are off. What happened inside of you when you heard your twin brother say that?
It was very surreal. It was like I was transported, teleported, whatever, to just another place because that's the first time that it had ever been uttered. I knew the thoughts that I had, but I was, again, trying to suppress those because, of course, being raised in the South with black parents. You know, it's like, all right, we didn't raise you to be like this. And so for him to say it, twofold. One, I almost felt like there was a permission for me to be, because even though we're twins, Greg is the oldest. He's the big brother, and he's always assumed the role of the protector. So if my big brother is saying he is, then, man, can it be okay for me to be too? But then on the other end, I'm like, no, we're not supposed to be like this. We're not supposed to do this. So how can you do this? Not understanding the fact, for me, I'm not understanding the fact that, you know, this was the beginning of us collectively coming into our own.
Now, was there pressure? Did you feel like there was pressure for you to have that moment, or was it just a casual, let me just say this?
It was casual.
Okay.
You know, when I was a teenager, I was pretty much in my own world. You know, if it wasn't an RPG or like a role-playing game or like video games in general, I didn't really too much care. So for me, it was just one of those things where, okay, well, I'm feeling this because, you know, I was perhaps not Zach was the more popular of the two of us, but I was okay with that because I was like, you know what? You know, I'm in my own little world. I've got my world. This is what it is, because high school wasn't the best. Like, I didn't hit my stride. I don't think we hit our stride till graduate school, probably. Like, that's when we came into who we are now.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
so
undergrad,
it depends on the stride you mean.
You know, yes. And so for me, it was not a challenging thing at all.
Okay, so if I may ask then, had you guys had sexual experiences with same sex when you guys had that conversation, or did that come after?
For me, it came after.
Okay.
For me, it came after.
Yeah.
So how did life change after that moment? Did you feel a little bit more confident, or was it like, oh, my brother feels this way too, I have to protect him? What was going on there?
I think there's always a sense that we have to protect each other. So Greg and I have this running joke of, we don't need nobody else as long as we got each other. And so
there's 5 of us, like we have 3 other siblings.
Yeah. And so when the conversation with our parents and our family came, for instance, we already went in with a united front of, like, my mentality was, I don't care about them attacking me, they're not going to attack him, though. And I think that's always, and it's vice versa. And so we have this relationship, even when we get in knockdown, drag out arguments
with each other,
you're not finna talk to my brother like that. You know, and so for us, I think it was that opportunity, yet again, to protect one another, or want to protect one another from what the world was going to bestow upon us. Yeah.
How did relationships evolve, right? Because I know at one point in time, you, Zach, were identifying yourself as bisexual, and that you have had experiences with women, whereas Greg has not.
Right. So
how did that dynamic play out between the two of you? Was there any judgment? Was there any... how does that work? Because I know for me, I'm not a twin, right? But with my brother, when we were in high school and starting to have experiences with the opposite sex, we were pretty open about discussing it with one another. At least I was with him. But as we got a little bit older, that talk kind of died down a little bit, and it was just more like, I know you're doing your thing, I know you're doing your thing, but it's not necessarily something that we would talk about all the time. So with you guys being twins, talking to each other about just life in general, did you guys share that side of you with one another, the thoughts, the feelings that came with that, or was it more or less, I know he's gay like me, and so what type of thing? We're just both living, both dating, both having experiences, and that's that.
We've never not told each other everything.
Okay.
And I think but for us, it got to a detrimental point where we would tell each other too much of everything, and then we would try to have input on each other's lives and get angry when the other one was not taking the advice. And so that's what caused a rift between us in telling each other everything, I would say. But I don't think there was ever any judgment.
Yeah. And we also have to tell each other because, there will be dudes that'll try and holler at both of us. And
the fetish.
Yes, the fetish. They have the twin fetish.
Imagine that. I never even thought about that.
Yeah. And so it'll typically happen in one or two ways. In many cases, they don't know that we're twins, which I find very hard to believe because we have each other plastered on our social media all over the place. But back in our day when there was no Instagram and there was no Facebook,
we had College Club
and Black Planet
and Yahoo IL.
Yes, and so that made it, of course, easier for that to happen. But then there will be some nowadays that do know but don't care. They're like, oh, well, if I can't bag you, I'm trying to get your brother. And then they get offended or upset when we don't feed into the fetish. Or when we don't agree with the fantasy. Or when they'll say, oh, well, you and your brother both get down, y'all get down together. No. And that's, at least for me, the cutoff of the conversation.
Yeah. Wow.
Because you're not about to fetishize me like white men do with my beard or my skin tone or things like that. You're not about to do that, so.
I'm pressing the imaginary button from this side of the camera. Let's
talk about it. Let's talk about it.
So, being Black gay men in America today, how do you feel that you guys are being received by society, by other races, by other genders, by other...
I always say that white people love our sexuality but hate our skin tone, but Black people love our skin tone but hate our sexuality. And as I was telling your sister earlier, I've been called a faggot by Black people well before I was ever called a nigger by a white person. Like, to this day, I've never had a white person sit in my face and call me a nigger. But I've had Black people call me a punk, a sissy, a faggot, all dead in my face.
Yeah.
So
I struggle at times with it because, you have this mentality of, we as Black people, we're supposed to be this unified front. It's about us. Asterisk.
Black Lives Matter.
Asterisk.
With
certain terms and conditions apply.
Yes.
And those terms and conditions are, especially for the Hotepians out here. You can't be a strong Black woman, or you can't be a gay Black man, or these are these things. And so then, when you look at yourself comparatively in the community, the gay community, LGBTQ community, you're either a fetish or you're looked upon as lesser than because of your skin tone. So it's almost like, where do you fit? Where's your home? Where do you belong? And even then, within the gay community, the Black gay community, there's so much judgment because you have to make a certain amount of money, you have to be a certain body type, you have to be sometimes a certain skin tone, sometimes a certain height,
a level of masculinity.
So literally, it's like waking up every day and
there's
wondering
something
where you fit.
How do you manage that? That's so much to growing up, coming into your own as a professional, having relationships with people that you love, interacting with family is already difficult on its own. But then when you have that feeling, all those feelings inside of you, how do you navigate that and still come out as strong and as successful and as...
almost sane.
You know what I mean? As you guys are. How does that even happen?
I think that you have to find what works for you because it's different things for different people. Like for me, I get a lot of my frustrations out by working out and going to the gym and just taking care of myself and, giving myself the ability to be selfish. Because at the end of the day, I don't owe anyone anything and I can't pour from an empty cup. So I'm going to make sure that I'm good first, and whatever that looks like for me, I don't care if it looks differently for somebody else. That's not their concern. And so then I'm able to go out into the world and be much more embracing of individuals and people where there's differences, because I know there are things that I say and I do that people don't agree with, and that's just human nature. And I think that you need to also find your tribe. And so for me, like, I hang out with predominantly homosexual Black men. Zach prefers to hang out with heterosexual people. Like, and that's just the thing. And like, for me, no offense to any of the heterosexuals out there, y'all can be really exhausting. Y'all can be really exhausting and really taxing. And I'm just like, you don't get it.
And so the crazy thing for me though is, that's what I experienced with like hanging out with nothing but homosexual people. Because you always have to be on. You always have to look a certain way or present a certain way. And so, to me, that's exhausting. And I think also, it's interesting because to answer your question, I where I draw that strength or that peace from or whatever. Two things. One, you are the most two thing in this ass motherfucker.
I am too, so it's
I
live your life.
Live my life. Thank you, Omini.
It's never 3 things, 5 things, 1 thing.
I can have as many things as I want.
Apparently only 2.
One is, I believe wholeheartedly that we're the Shirley twins. Like, I draw my strength from that. I'm like,
we're a brand.
Our parents raised us, reared us. You know, we went to college, achieved these degrees, achieved this notoriety. We have built ourselves up when, as black men in America, that's not supposed to happen. So I draw my strength from that, knowing that, all right, you know what? We got to go out and we got to get this. The second place, I think, though, where I draw my strength from, and I think this is where the difference between Greggy's friend group and my friend group comes in, especially from predominantly hanging out with similar LGBTQ people. I have gay friends, definitely, because I'm gay. But I mean, I also think that my activeness in the fraternity, Greg is not as active in his fraternity as I am in ours. And so, you know, having that ability to be, you know, a dean of pledges or a chapter president or a chapter advisor, I attached a lot of my strength, motivation, drive because I had y'all watching me as my students. And you know, even when we go back to TWU, that blue couch.
Right.
Everybody loved the blue couch. And you know, whether it was black kids, white kids, Latinx kids, any type of student, I was like, all right, I don't want this student to go through the same struggles that I went through growing up in terms of identity or finding a place to be comfortable. So I'm going to create that space. And I think that in my career that has driven me to pour into that, sometimes a little bit to my detriment, but I think that being able to identify as we wake up every day, knowing it's a struggle. You know, I could be marginalized based off of my race, my ethnicity, my sexual orientation, my socioeconomic status,
your age,
my age, because you know, and there's a huge ageism issue in the LGBTQ community. 40 years old is off the top seen as 80, and so when you're fetishized by the tweens and the young 20-year-olds that are who have a daddy complex, and so all of that noise,
right?
You're like, all right, I got to get up and do what I need to do. So I'm going to navigate through this noise. It doesn't make it any easier, but it's also like, all right, I have struggles as well as everybody else. So let me navigate and power through.
Okay, so let's unpack this Greek life, right? Mm-hmm. Greg is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. Zach is a member of Phi Beta Sigma. So I always thought that was really a cool dynamic between the two of you guys, because what I've noticed in the time that I've known you guys allow each other space to breathe within the dynamic of your brotherhood, right? Mm-hmm. And you guys do a great job of not stepping on each other's toes in that regard, right? Yeah. There's time to shine for both of you. Mm-hmm. Even in terms of in person, you can see the way that you guys relate, the way that you guys converse. It's a beautiful thing to witness, right? Because most people that are married for God knows how many years haven't grasped that, and you guys have it so effortlessly. But I want to know, how has Black Greekdom embraced or not embraced you? What was that journey like? This is something that our society, our culture holds dear. Mm-hmm. These organizations have been around for 100 years. The majority of them have crossed that line. Yep. Others are well on their way to getting to that 100-year mark. Yeah. So we've had decades of examples, from Martin Luther King to all across the board have aligned themselves with these organizations, have gained so much from it, put so much into it. Our children wear Future Alpha, Future whatever t-shirts. It's indoctrinated in our society. But one thing that I personally have witnessed is a lot of homophobia within the Black Greek family, so to speak.
And toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity is there too.
I think for me personally, you can't talk about one without addressing the other.
Okay.
Because I think for a lot of people, and I feel like that not all, but there are some men and women who are D9 that will perpetuate the toxic masculinity stereotype and the toxic masculinity behavior because they grew up seeing that as the way that a man is supposed to act and behave. And when you think about it with rape culture, when you think about it with men who are dictating what women should wear or how women should behave, and there are some women who perpetuate that as well, and they will feed into that. So homophobia is one of those things. And there was an interesting article by an African-American gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he said that cisgender, which is, for those that don't know what cisgender is,
because I don't.
Be surprised. So you, Zach, and I are cisgender. So we were born men, and we identify in the bodies that we're born in.
Okay.
So when we walk out, when we wake up, we're like, okay, I identify as a man. I am a man. Someone who is transgender, if they were born male, they don't see their representation in the male body.
Fair enough.
They see themselves as women.
Right.
And so he said that cisgender heterosexual black men are the white men of the African American community because they feel greatly attacked by strong black women or powerful LGBTQ people. And oftentimes the black community has perpetuated that you can sell drugs, you can have multiple baby mamas, you can go to prison, but you are still more of a man than someone who is gay.
Wow.
And he said in it that oftentimes men who identify with that have those toxic masculinity traits, oftentimes are given the biggest and most comfortable chair at the table and the biggest piece of meat out of everybody in the family. And so I think that D9 perpetuates a lot of that. And for me personally, the reason that I am not as active as my brothers, because I noticed in my organization and in the chapter that I was a part of that there were a lot of toxic masculine traits that were being emulated and perpetuated. So you can have someone who has multiple baby mamas or cheating on their girlfriends and their wives, but they want to make that's gay or a very homosexual related joke. But I'm like, you not living 100 yourself. And so why is it that this type of lifestyle is accepted or tolerated, but my type of lifestyle, because that is the lifestyle that I am in, I am a same gender loving black man, is being criticized. And so for me, in my 30s, I'm all about protecting my peace. So if it's not going to be conducive to my peace, I don't want to be a part of it. Do I still love my organization? Yes. When I joined my organization, when I crossed, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I will always hold high the name of Alpha and always emulate the light. However, as with the other 8 organizations, because none of us are perfect, we have a lot of work to do. And, I think Zach can tie into it more than me because he works day in and day out with fraternal organizations. NPHC is lacking something from a professional and personal development perspective that NIC, IFC, Panhellenic has down pat.
In some regards.
In some regards. But as someone that works in career development, and I've been doing career development for 11 years, other than putting Alpha Phi Alpha, Phi Beta Sigma, Omega Psi Phi, etc. on your resume, what can someone sit and say that it purposely and intentionally does to aid you in career and professional advancement? And it's a rhetorical question. And to this day, a lot of our black Greek letter organization members say, oh, well, my soror hooked me up with this, or my frat hooked me up with this, and yeah. But what else? Let's go a layer deeper. Let's unpack that. Because for a lot of our collegiate and some of our alumni members, they still hold on to those grudges that were on the yard back when they were on the yard. And so for me, I would rather be in a staff where I know somebody is in another D9 organization so they know the commonality. But it's so few and far between. I'll just take somebody who has some Greek letters across their chest. Oh, you're an Alpha Chi Omega? Great. But if you're a Delta or you're a Zeta or an Iota, I'm like, okay, we know that bond. But for a lot of us, we still treat that on the yard beef as on the yard beef on the job. And that's a problem.
Before Zach responds, I want to say this publicly because you compared someone that has a infidelitous relationship as being, don't knock my homosexuality when you're cheating on your girlfriend or wife.
Or husband.
Or husband or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
By baseline, absolutely nothing wrong with homosexuality. And I don't think that it should be compared as a wrong to another wrong or in that same light. And I know a lot of people do, and a lot of people like to biblically back that up. And I consider myself a Christian, but yet and not to go deep into religion, so to speak, because I know we can go down that road all day long. We all have choices that we make in our lifestyle that if someone viewed it, they wouldn't agree with it, right? But inherently, nothing wrong with homosexuality. My personal opinion. So I just want to put that out there.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because you have many who think that there is something that is
lesser than.
And I'm heterosexual personally, for the record, for those that may not know.
Yes.
Extremely.
Yes. Omini is very cis het. He is very cis het.
So, for me, when he talks about the reasons why he's not as active in Alpha because of the homophobia and those behaviors, to me that veers me towards being active because I'm like, you won't shut me out this room. I have something to offer this organization that you don't have to offer. Not you in particular, but
I understand.
So I'll sit in our chapter meetings and hear, or be around brothers who have these opposing views of my lifestyle. I've never been one of those. So as an academician, I've never been one of those people to sit up and say, oh, for instance, I'm going to unfollow this person because of their political affiliation. Or I'm not going to talk to this person because they have this sentiment towards my sexuality. No. As an academician, I'm going to learn from you. I'm going to learn your perspective. I'm going to educate you on mine. And if at the end of the conversation you still have your views, at least you heard a different view from somebody who lives in that space. I have every right to be in this organization, at conclave, at regionals, at state, in the chapter meeting, as the next brother.
Yes, you do.
I pay my dues, I know my information, and I've brought many a brother in who knows his information.
Including myself.
Including yourself. So I look at it as I'm going to do the work to be the change within the organization. But there were times when I was jaded by Black Greekdom. When I became a Freemason, I found so much more love in Masonry. I found love in Masonry. I won't say much more. I found adult love in Masonry as I found my collegiate love in Sigma. However, in not the working in fraternity and sorority life aspect part, because I love that. I love being with the students and I love seeing them, come to their full potential. I mean, I think about you every day when you first walked into my office to the man that you are now. That is what I love. When I see our organizations function, however, and I've seen national representatives from our organizations attack homosexuality within the organization and try to do it in a politically correct way. For a while, that turned me off. And so then when I became a Freemason, I was like, wow, this is like, I'm loved by these brothers unapologetically for who I am. But then because of that, I was like, I have a responsibility to go back to my original home in Sigma and in the Divine Nine and do the work there that I'm appreciating over here. And it's not perfect in Masonry, but at the end of the day, I took an oath of loyalty to this organization. And for me not to be a part of it and not to pour into it, it doesn't say anything about those brothers. It says something about me. I have work that needs to be done in the organization. And I don't look at it as just a Sigma thing. I have work to do with all of our organizations. And as a professional, that's where my passion comes in. It stops at being a member of one of these organizations, and it starts back up at being a professional. And I have a duty to be that example to a young person who may be struggling with their sexuality, but also has a love and a passion for wanting to be in one of our organizations. And to show that it is possible. Black Greekdom is one of the most beautiful yet messed up experiences. And I will say that honestly because of the fact there's a lot that we have to deal with. We have a crab in a barrel mentality between our organizations. People who think that the first 4 founded are better than the the first 5 that were founded are better than the last 4 that were founded. People who think you're a PWI member versus an HBCU member, so one experience is greater than the other.
Or people who think that transgender people shouldn't be members.
We have so much internal crap in our organizations, but people think that they're the best thing since sliced bread. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of aspects, they are. The leadership development I got from Sigma, second to none. The relationships I built in Sigma, second to none. If it weren't for Phi Beta Sigma, we would not be sitting here today with you.
Correct.
So I don't shy away from how powerful that is. But that doesn't mean that we don't have work that is necessary to do. And when people stop looking through life in these organizations with rose-colored glasses, they will see the internal hatred and bigotry that we have towards each other. And it's not just based off of sexual orientation.
Yeah.
You know,
there's a lot.
There's a lot. I mean, to have.
There's some men who hate women that are in our organizations.
That's correct.
Yes.
And vice versa.
Yes.
Women that hate men.
Yes, women that hate men
in our organizations.
Like when that Omega had on that Bill Cosby of my frat brother shirt, I was just like, that's a problem. That is a problem. You know, and however you feel about Bill Cosby one way or the other, that's very problematic. And so when you see somebody who has daughters or sisters, or you have a mother or an aunt, and you are not only perpetuating that trauma, but you are glamorizing it, there's a problem. And I think that, you know, my personal opinion, if we spend less time on Watch the Yard making these videos,
or Greek shenanigans,
you know, and really got back to, like with Alpha, manly deeds, scholarship, and love for all mankind. You know, every day I wake up and I look in the mirror, I'm like, what can I do today to emulate one of the aims of my fraternity and my organization? And sometimes it's just as easy as just being kind to somebody. Like, just be kind. Be nice. You know, and I think we struggle with that. And I'm not nice and kind every day.
He's not.
I am not. However, as I get older and I mature and I go into my walk of life and being the Gregory that I want to be and being the alpha man that I am, I look at it from the perspective of, Greg, you could have handled that in a much better way. And so now what I do is I make sure that whatever's the most challenging, difficult thing, whether it's a conversation, whether it's an email, whether it's an act or habit, I tackle that first throughout the day, because the longer I wait, the more anxiety that I'm going to get. And I feel like, you know what, I'll be able to go to bed at night with a smile on my face knowing that I was able to accomplish that.
One of the things that I love about homosexuality in our society is...
fashion.
Besides the fashion and the contributions, right?
You know, because people want to say, oh, throw shade and talk tea. That came from us.
It's true.
It came from the community.
It's true.
Yes.
But, and what I'm seeing here today in this interview, you guys have faced the mirror in your own personal lives. You guys have come to terms with who you are. And I know it's a process, a lifelong process. But your lifestyle has forced you, just so you can look in that mirror, you had to face, how do I reconcile what I feel inside with the society that I'm living in? And I think those that don't have to face that, whether it's through their sexuality, whether it's through illness or healthcare issues, whether it's through educational, whatever someone would say that's not a baseline normal, quote unquote. I feel that individuals that don't have those experiences are so much more ill prepared than those of us that do have to have those experiences. And so the flaws that we have in our society can actually shape us into really beautiful, well thought out, well manicured people that are empathetic because they've experienced something themselves.
Yes.
And that's what I see here.
Yes.
You guys have pushed yourselves to the highest of what society has says is attainable educationally wise. But I know your personal pursuits far outweigh whatever piece of paper you have attached to your name, right? And in talking to you gentlemen today, after not having a conversation like this for years, I see the growth, and I'm just so proud of you guys. And
Thank you.
I've been trying to get them behind the scenes to start their podcast. So I need everybody.
Now, so we got
I'm putting their social medias on this camera. Harass them and tell them to start their podcast in 2020. Okay? So I just want to thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
This was enlightening. And I know that when people see this, it's going to be a conversational piece. And I think that that's what we need, especially within our culture and our community. So for you two to stand at the forefront of that, I commend you. And I want you to know that you have my support, however the chips may fall.
Thank you, brother.
He said he'll edit for free, so I mean, you know.
I did say that.
He did say that, so now
edit
we
your
get things on
podcast.
tape.
And he got equipment, he said. But I will say this, one thing that you said before we wrap, the struggle that people go through that makes them better. Oftentimes, and I talk to students about this all the time, stop trying to skip the struggle. You know, it hurts now. Oh, it hurts. However, there's no testimony without that test. And you need that test because you look back on it and you're like, all right, you know, that sucked, but I made it through that.
Yeah. And we all have something. Like Zach and I were talking about this in the car. Everybody has something. Like Zach and I grew up in a fairly great home. It could have been way worse. We've known people that have had it a lot worse. And so Zach and I deal with things day in and day out from like health perspectives or personal perspectives. And, you know, for me, what I do is God put that in my life, whatever it is, for a reason. So I could be a testimony and an example to someone else. You know, I think he designed us pretty well to be what we always say is black gay twins with doctorate degrees in 2 different black Greek letter organizations. Because, like, there's no one else like this.
Flex.
No one.
Flex.
No one.
I've not
Met them. And so even as somebody can struggle with their health issues or their family issues or things like that, like you said earlier, there's always going to be a market for somebody. You know, and just because they may not get it from us doesn't mean, well, we're very unique. But just because they can't get it from one place doesn't mean they can't get it from somebody else. And I look at like so many different workout videos on YouTube all the time, but there are ones that stand out and emulate for me that I subscribe to and ones that I don't. And there's thousands of them. So,
Right.
And it may be different for somebody else.
Y'all got this. Y'all are beautiful. Y'all are blessed. I got your back. I thank you guys so much for your time. And yeah, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. Like, click, subscribe.
Right? All the above.
Podcast coming in 2020.
Hey.
Let's
Can we
talk.
get a second? Can we get a second? Robert Rules of Order.
Yes. There's a second.
All right.
Yes.
So it passes.
Okay. All right.